Jimbo, welcome
Got
to
it.
the show.
I'm so happy to be here.
I am looking forward to talking about boxes. What else
I'm
should we
I'm
talk
looking I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit about, your conference too. If you are you willing to share some highlights about that?
Sure, later. First things
Yeah.
first. First, it's
Okay.
about you. And
Okay. All right.
then you get to ask me some bonus questions.
I don't want you to think I don't listen.
Let's test that. Um,
Okay.
when did you start calling yourself a facilitator?
Um I met a facilitator who's kind of like my godfather in facilitation. His name is Larry Philbrook. He works with the Institute of Cultural Affairs, ICA. They propagate the TOP, technology of participation methodology. I met him in 95, 94, and we started reading a book together and just getting together. And then I actually introduced him to the company I was working in, and I got to understudy from him. So I was hanging up posters and cutting paper and doing all the things that you do to prepare for facilitation. And about 2 years into that process, I said, I want to be a world-class facilitator and trainer. And I told him and my other godfather, who's on the training side, a guy named David Neenan in America, I told them both, this was my goal. I want to be world-class. And so I just ended up shadowing the two of them and then shadowing uh, a number of other facilitators and trainers and just saying, can I do music? Can I hang up posters? And then after a while they'd say, well, if you want to, you can do this piece or you can do that piece. And eventually I think there was a moment in time where I took these two styles, the accelerated learning training style and the very process facilitation style, and put it together and created a training and facilitation. And at the end of that, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm a facilitator and people tell me I'm world class. So, all right, there you go. You know,
Wonderful.
yeah.
What a nice story. And I like the label of godfather instead of
Mm,
mentor.
mm.
What's for you the difference?
Like a godparent, if you think about a godparent, I don't mean Godfather like the movie The Godfather. I think about like a godparent. A godparent doesn't have DNA in the game. It's no genealogy in the game, but there's some kind of a relationship um, uh, where there's something special, and it's not like I didn't choose. I do have godparents. I didn't choose them. My parents chose them, and I'd like to think the universe chose Larry and David as kind of my godparents in all of this. Um, just by being willing to give me chances and just by challenging my assumptions so much and modeling being a really 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 decent human being. They're both such giving people, and so I think both of the people that I modeled myself were not into facilitation to make money. They made money because they were good at it.
Mm.
And very generous, extremely generous. And I think what a great grounding to have outside of the process side of it, but just being generous.
Mm. And I thank you for sharing that. I can totally see it because the godfather, godparent connotation also has something like a long term commitment, has responsibility. The mentor is more short term,
Mm,
less binding. And also, what you said about the making money, they made money because they're good at it, resonates so much with me. Um, Also, because for me, that's part of the facilitator's mindset. The moment where
mm,
you let go, where you just do because you want to achieve the best for the group, you let
mm,
go and then you're achieving the best. The moment where you're not trying to make money, you'll become good at it
mm,
and then the money will come.
Yeah.
because you can give it all.
Yeah. And that's I think that's such a differentiator. Maybe even between like the difference between a trainer and a facilitator. I think trainers facilitate and facilitators train, but there's a different mindset. Um, and that the midwife is a metaphor that the ICA uses a lot as a facilitator. So facilitator is a midwife. It's not your baby. You know, you're just trying to do everything you can to deliver this new thing to the world in a way where you protect the safety of the parents and you give it the best possible chance for survival and growth
and to enable the parents to be there and to do the best to protect and nurture this baby idea.
Yeah. And that could mean some education. That could mean some, hey dad, you got to do this, or whatever in that fragile moment. But then after that fragile moment, I think it's good for us to walk away, and let the real people do the work, let the real parents get to the work of it. I fell in love with open space technology in 2000. And, the sign of a good open space meeting is in the closing circle, nobody mentions you as a facilitator. So if that was, when that happens, when they go around and they talk about how they've done all these wonderful things and no one mentions, my contribution or the team's contribution, I'm just like, woof, yes, that's success, right?
Yes, and again, it is mindset. It's the most beautiful thing, but it means to let go of ego, because the only one who will celebrate you is yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom passed a few years, so I guess so. Because my mom would have celebrated me. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. Group, as you mentioned, it's if the group forget that you're there, then you're proud of yourself, but you're the only one who can nurture this kind of pride.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you mentioned the world-class facilitator. So what is it for you that sets someone apart? What makes someone world-class in facilitation?
Oh. Well, I don't know. I set myself up for that, didn't I? Well, that's a really interesting question. I mean, I came up with that phrase world-class, this is like 95, 90, actually 98 was when I think I said that. And from the facilitator standpoint, I've seen so many different people with so many different approaches and so many different spirits, so many different energies, so many different ways of being. I've seen facilitators that can be super confrontational and very direct with the group and very direct with the leader or whatever. And I've seen others that are like, Tai Chi masters who, are just, flowing around the group. And so, I don't think I could really give a good description. I guess the way that I would put it, and this sounds really strange, is it's a person I would really like to work and play with. It's a person who has honed their craft, and they have their voice, and they have their presence, and they have their way of dealing with their own doubts and their own shadow. They know that they have a shadow, and they're okay with it. I think Prince, I'm a huge Prince fan. In one of Prince's songs, he says, "I know from righteous, I know from sin. I got two sides and they're both friends." And I think the facilitators I know are like all humans. They're flawed beasts, but they have a level of self-awareness and love for themselves and for the group in all of our whole and incompleteness. It's that whole thing. We're complete and incomplete at the same time, and being able to sit in that. I don't know if any of that made any sense, but it's a tough question.
And I think it makes a lot of sense. And because to me, what I hear from your words is that it's not about what we're doing, but the way how we're doing it, and how we're saying it, and how we deal with the stuff happening between our ears while we're in charge of a group. So it's a lot about self-awareness, about mindset, about maturity.
Yeah, and even that sense of depending on how you take the word in charge of a group, there's the sense of in charge in terms of control, but then there's almost like a babysitter has their charges, right? I never think of myself in charge of the group. The way I imagine myself when I'm facilitating is, here's a group of individuals who may have some kind of connections to each other, and they're smart. The group is smarter than any one of the group, including me. But when I join the group, I add my wisdom into the group. And so I shift the balance a bit. And so it's not about me leading the group. It's about me adding my energy into the group.
And enhance.
Yeah. And so then I need to model the energy I want from the group. I need to model the behaviors I want from the group, because that's what gets them to do it.
Yeah. Somehow for me, the image of an amplifier came up. Where there's something in the group that's already there, but in order to really come out and to take form and shape, it needs an amplifier, a medium. Yeah. And the medium is partly the workshop as a structure in itself. So the design that we bring in, but the medium is also the facilitator. And then sometimes a group and this hidden wisdom of a group needs someone who's very daring and present, and sometimes they need someone who's rather leading from the back of the room, almost invisible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And sometimes you have to be both. I mean, there are times where they only got you. And so, as a facilitator, we have to stretch out of our comfort zones to play the role that the group needs, as opposed to bringing the group into our comfort zone.
Yeah. And I became aware of you by I don't know who it was. I wish I could recall. Someone told me, Miriam, do you know Jimbo Clark? The guy with the box? The box guy. You need to talk
the box
to him.
Guy. Yeah.
So I think that's already something, right? If you have your own label and someone refers to you as such. So what is it that this box guy thing about?
What's the box guy thing?
Thinking outside the box, recreating the box, inside the box.
In and out of the box, unbox, live, be unboxable. There's a lot of, we could talk about boxes for a long time. This is, I think in life in general, but I think in the world of facilitation in particular, wonderful things happen from the position of yes. And I had a client that asked me, can you do a program for us on out of the box thinking? Right now, we are all thinking in silos, and we need to think out of the box. And I said, yes, of course I can. It's what I do best. and then I went back home and I was like, well, what am I going to do? And on the floor near my desk, there was an empty paper box, like an A4 paper box. And I was thinking, what is the box that you're supposed to think out of? And I took this box, and I just kind of stuck it on my head. And I said, so this is in the box, and this is out of the box. And so I started to think, oh my God, this it's like scuba diving or snorkeling. You know, there's this world and there's this world. And it gave me that kind of feeling of, wow, in the box is like this. And then I had this idea of, I'm going to put boxes upon their heads. It will be fabulous. And so I bought a bunch of box cutters and cardboard, and I just brought in big sheets of cardboard, just blank cardboard, and said, your boss, he was in the room. David wants us to think out of the box. Let's build the box we're supposed to think out of. And so they just took cardboard and started cutting holes, and I had never even, to be honest with you, I didn't even know how to make a box out of a flat piece of cardboard. I figured just let them figure it out. And I really thought it would take maybe 45 minutes to an hour for the whole process of building and talking, put it on, take it off. It was like 3 hours that we went through, and it was really powerful. But there was two other things. So it was powerful on the one hand, but it was like, it was a diamond in the rough. I could tell that there was so much underneath the surface that we couldn't touch. I didn't know how to get it to it, and that really frustrated me that there was some beauty in there. But then the photos were so cool, and I added it into my presentation deck when I met new clients. And and then we put boxes on people's on there. Oh my God, what's this? And like, it was so sticky, and so people saw those photos, and especially the more senior the leader, the more they were interested in it. Like, oh my God, yes, I experience this every day. I need my people to get the box off their head. Yes, I want to do this. And so it was really just saying yes to an idea and trying it out, and then finding out that it was sticky, and then spending about 4 or 5 years iterating it, before I became the box guy. Yeah.
I love the story. Thank you so much. And everyone who's listening to this audio only, jump over to YouTube to watch the video to that.
I use my hands like Kermit the Frog, it's like my hands are going everywhere. Yeah.
Love it. So much to unpack. On different levels. What is it that makes so what have you learned from the leadership's reaction to that? Oh yeah, this is something, because I hear this craving maybe for novelty, for maybe something different, something a little bit daring, and you put your finger on a real pain.
I think that's a piece of it. That daring for creativity. I live in Asia. I live in Taiwan. My primary markets have been Hong Kong, Shanghai, Singapore, Beijing, Shenzhen, as I was developing this product. And I think part of what attracted people to it is you're talking about your unconscious bias. You're talking about your unconscious boundaries. You're talking about mindset. We've said the word mindset 26 times here. How do you get people to reflect on their mindset? It's so unconscious. I mean, it's right. And so, yeah. So the wonderful thing about the box is there is this really easy to understand metaphor of thinking in a box that's based on my experience, my background, my perspectives. And so even if you're not a native English speaker and you've never heard the phrase think out of the box, you can get this metaphor very, very quickly, that I protect myself with my thinking, and I have my unconscious biases. And then to be able to open up that box and to write out and to share what those boundaries are, and what's stopping you, and what your fears are, and what how you make your decisions, and what are the key experiences in your life that have changed you. These are kind of deeper conversations, but the box allows you to get there in about an hour. because you're just playing with it. And then all of a sudden you're talking about, your past, or you're talking about your pressure points.
Yeah. And this phrase just came to my mind, that when you're inside the box, you cannot see the label. I think it's not about the box, but if you're inside the can, you don't see the label that's
Yes,
on it.
yes.
Similar, right?
And the box has an outside. And it's funny, for the first 3 years that I did this, I didn't want to spend any time on the outside, because it was all about, the box contains. And I brought in a bunch of my facilitator friends to my home, and I said, I got this process. I'm trying to figure it out. Could you just help me? And the first thing they said after the process was, why didn't you let us spend more time on the outside? I care what people see. I care about the outside. And then, so that opened up a whole level of dialogue and thinking for me about how much of what stops us from getting what we really want in life is the label, is what I want you to think about me, and what I want others to see about me, and what I want to hide, and all this branding that goes on, and how much pressure shows up from having the gap between what's on the outside and what's on the inside. It's like, and so then that's a whole nother kind of conversation that's just so easy to talk about when you've got this physical thing that well, you can see, you can see the outside and what people want, and you can see what's going on the inside. And so then in our model, we would say that integrity is me putting more of my inside on the outside, and authenticity is me allowing more of my reactions, my responses, my who I am right now to show out, like letting my light shine from inside. And it, like in Chinese, integrity is a really tough concept. It's a tough concept in Chinese. But when you do it this way, so it's just the more that you have on the inside that's on the outside, the easier it is for people to know who you are and predict who you are, and it's easy for you to be yourself.
Also, then with all these issues of cognitive dissonance, if we know that the outside world sees who we want to be, then it's easier to stick to these rules and be consistent.
Yeah.
And I wonder, where does the real magic come from? Is it this change in perspective, as you mentioned, where you first see everything, then you see this restricted world through the holes, and then you see everything again? Or is it...
Yeah.
Or is it...
There's two. I think there's two. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm sorry, I interrupted. I'm sorry. You had an or.
Yeah, or is it really the process of crafting the box?
Mm.
So is it the process, or is it the result, basically?
So the process of crafting the box is like the IKEA effect, and so they care about it. And the more time you give them with the box, the more they care about it. And it becomes an artifact that is like a representative of me.
Like the Billy.
And so, yeah. And there's such a nice gradient, because usually we start on the outside and people are drawing themselves and putting some different things about them. So your public self, what if I were to follow you for a day, what would I hear you say? What would I hear you do? Who are you on a good day? Who are you on a bad day? What do people see? And these are things that are so easy to talk about. So then they enjoy the drawing, and then when you get them to share with each other, it's like a cocktail party. It's like the energy levels, like, because so much of this is rehearsed, and then you start going on the inside, and the front is the filters, and these are the big experiences of my life, and the big the important parts of my current context, my experience now, my past and current experience. And now people start talking about, I was the youngest of 11 kids. I was an only child. All these different kinds of stories that don't show up in the business, but impact who you are in the business. And then we talk about the left and the right, and that's how we make our quick decisions, by positive and negative energy. And it's like values. It's your preferences. It's your judgments. And what I want to avoid and what I want more of. And so then this starts getting to be even deeper. And then we go into the back of the box, which is about my pressure. I want this, but I think this, so I feel pressure. I'm stuck in the middle and people are coming out. So there's this gradient. So by the time they get to the back and they're talking about their pressure, it's like real. So that's the one magic piece, is the gradient and the experiential side of it. And it's not just making it, but it's how every single thing on this box is a piece of me. Then the other magic moment is, we get everybody out and running around and they all got to go, take pictures of themselves and do stuff. I used to have them pass balls with boxes on their heads. Now we just have them take pictures and stuff. And then you get them standing in a circle and you talk about how, when you're in a meeting, you're looking through your filters and you've got your pressure and you've got your judgments and you're showing the best of you and you're hiding your dirty little secrets. And this is how we all show up in a meeting. This is how we all show up at work. And on the count of 3, we're going to take the box off. So ready, 1, 2, 3. And there's this collective sigh of release as you take the box off. And then it's like, yeah. And then we unpack that. And so the unpacking is, when you had the box on your head, what did you experience? Well, I couldn't really see other people. When you're under pressure, do you really see other people? And so we go back and forth with the experience of this thing on your head and how my brain reacts to pressure. And then all of a sudden they realize, oh my God, this is me under pressure. This is me on a bad day. This is me. And so then what am I going to do about that? And that becomes what we work on. But that moment's the magic. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I can imagine this really, when you just described it, I got goosebumps just from your explanation, because I feel it. I feel it, this soulagement, this relief of finally I can put my mask down.
Yeah.
I can put the box off, but also meaning I can put the mask down. I can be myself. Because I've sharing the inside with the outside, putting it on the box, on the outside labels for others to see it, then I can put it off because everyone knows anyway. And then let's have a conversation.
And there's a great, so when we use this a lot at the beginning of like conferences or longer meetings. And the whole idea is that in this meeting today, we want to go into what we call open box thinking. And so I'm lowering my mask, lowering my face, and I'm being reflective. So as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, what in my current thinking can I change? So that's magic.
And what I found intriguing is that you said we're going into open box and not out of the box thinking.
No.
So the open box meaning that we're opening up, being transparent about what's happening inside the box. And then the out of the box is just a natural next step. It's something that happens, but it's nothing that can be forced or can be created. What can be created is opening the box.
Right. And then in the end, you're still going to put a box back on your head. You just want to put a better box. Right. And so it's not about living out of a box, because, there's certain conventions in life that we do need to follow. I still got to pay my taxes. There are certain things. Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. I definitely did. But we won't talk about that. It's language is a part of my box, my culture, my dreams, my love for my kids, all of these are things that are inside my thinking, and my unconscious thinking helps me make thousands of decisions on a day. And it's none of that is bad until it gets in the way of getting what I really want. But I use the word really because it's not the superficial want. Usually our unconscious thinking is really, really good at getting us what we've got now or what we got in the past, but may not be aligned to the future. And so if my current thinking isn't aligned to my future vision, then I suffer. And so why not open up my thinking and say, oh gosh, I can't believe I still think this. I think I'll just take this one off for a bit, maybe I should just let go of this. And here, I'll just think I put a new thought here, and so you rewrite the inside of your box. You give yourself a better vision. You let go of some of the boundaries that are holding you back. And then you give that a try, and you put that into practice.
Almost sounds like box building, like
Yeah,
bodybuilding.
reboxing.
Rebox.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what you mean by reboxing.
Yeah, so reboxing is building a better box, building a better frame of mind, building a better mindset, building a facilitator's mindset. So a facilitator's mindset is not out of the box. It's in a different configuration of our thinking.
And it's what also comes to my mind is the concept that if everything is possible, nothing is possible. So if we don't have restrictions, then we cannot be creative because it's difficult to start. So having a box actually and having this constraints and limitations helps us to structure and to be really creative. But then sometimes it depends on the size of this box. So if I understand you correctly, it's actually really not about thinking outside the box because we don't want to be outside the box because then it's scary, right? We need these.
Well, I think let's go back to facilitation. If you think about a design of a facilitated process, there's going to be some part of that design that is usually vision or direction or end result oriented to make sure that the group is aligned to that. Mm-hmm. And then a step will usually be possibility thinking. Let's go out of the box. Let's think about what's possible. We're not making decisions now, right? So the out of the box part is not the decision-making part. So in our thinking, we say first you need to figure out what's your creative tension. What is that vision and what's holding you back? Once you have that, then you go out of the box to think of the creative ideas. And then you open the box, and you lower your assumptions. And I had so many wonderful experiences with senior teams across Asia doing like strategic planning. And you could see them walking in, finance and sales and marketing were all kind of, posturing against each other. But as soon as they would, and I'm not talking about the physical box, but in the process, there's a moment in time where they go from me to we. And suddenly resources become available, and suddenly rules become flexible, and suddenly, there's a movement towards the goal that didn't seem possible before the meeting. And to me, that's that they've opened up their thinking. They've realized that I can be more, not necessarily transparent, but I can be more reflective around what you're saying and seeing if there's a way of me sharing something or contributing to that. So that's that open box. But then you still have to build the better box, which is the convergence and us coming up with some sort of, so if this is the goal and these are our strategies, then we're going to have to stop doing some things and start doing other things. That start, stop, continue, or whatever you want to call it, that's building a better box. You're building a new constraint for the future. And then you try that constraint out, and then you see if it works. And if it works, then you go with it until it doesn't. And then you come into that point where you find out, God, this box is too small for me, or it's not serving me. And so then we go back through that process of going out and in and out and in. And it's like breathing, for all of our life, there's these moments of divergent possibility thinking. And there's moments of, oh my God, I got to get something done. And this is just a physical metaphor for what we've been doing all of our lives. It's just making it conscious so you can actually make some strategic choices about your thinking as opposed to about your actions.
Love that. And is this me to we moment then for a group? Because I think that's really the magic of a workshop. That's the one point you want to achieve, the me to we.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't need a workshop. Is this the moment where the group and all the individuals realize that we are all having these boxes and we're struggling with the same things, or how do you
It
facilitate?
depends.
How do you make this me to we moment
Yeah. It, it really depends because so usually the box process is about a 2.5 to 3.5 hour piece. And that's mostly self-reflection and sharing in small groups. And it's mostly about kind of maybe moving from a capital ME to a small ME. Right? If we can look at it that way, it's about self-awareness. And then in some programs, that self-awareness is enough. Like the box is used for like inclusion and diversity, and a lot of organizations where it's me becoming aware of how I'm viewing people from the outside as opposed to the inside, and how do we open up and all of that. And so then there doesn't need to be that same kind of me to we thing as there would be if it's a strategic planning, or if it was some goal achieving, or if it was it's what's been great for me as a trainer of trainers in this process is people bring in their own expertise. I just had someone recently that met me and said, oh my God, this is perfect for mergers and acquisitions. It's so far away from my expertise. But as we started talking about it, and we mapped it out, and you know what? It is. He had a great plan. And so now he's using this for mergers and acquisitions. So in that case, yes, there needs to be that we moment. But in other programs, maybe that understanding of me is enough. And maybe me coming up with some new ways of being is enough. And
I wonder whether the from capital me to lowercase me
yeah.
must include, or always by definition includes, the we, the broadening the horizon. Because if I don't see myself as the capital, the big one, I cannot see myself smaller without seeing the others around me and relating to them and seeing, okay, we are actually all human. We are all wearing these boxes and masks. And
in most of the processes, the part that I would say is the payoff, like the payoff moment is after we've got them to reflect on their inner thinking and make some adjustments. Then we have them go back to the outside of the box, and we ask 4 questions. And the first question is, if you make the changes on the inside, what new actions or behaviors will others see you do, or what might you see yourself do? And the second question is, if you make the changes on the inside, what new things might you find yourself saying, or how might you communicate differently? The third one is, if you make the changes on the inside of your thinking, what new feedback might you receive from others? And then the kicker, my favorite, I got goosebumps just thinking about it, is when you look at yourself in the mirror, what will you notice that's different? Right? And so we give just people a chance. And so we don't do action planning. So in this process, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to redefine the boundaries of our thinking rather than coming up with actions. And the idea is if I make some small change on my boundaries, then I'm going to see new opportunities and do new things and stop doing old things and, get more of what I really want with less pressure. That's the gift. And so the way we get into actions is just by asking, what would other people see and hear and experience? And then all of a sudden they find out, I won't yell at my kids as much, or, I'll tell my wife I love her, or, people would see me laughing more and having fun at work. And people would see me saying yes, or people would hear me saying no, or, I'd look in the mirror and I'd smile at myself, and, these, and so that's, to me, that's the payoff, because so often, and I think in a lot of our facilitated programs too, we have 2 outcomes. One is an aligned vision, and the other is strategies and tasks to get there. And then the ethereal sense of team. But there's none of this, like the enjoyment of the journey part.
Mm-hmm.
You know, me smiling or not yelling at my kids or saying no or yes. This is like, you know, sunshine when you're hiking as opposed to, you know, getting to the summit. You know, it's the movement towards as opposed to the result.
Yeah.
And I find people realizing that their lives can be better today with new thinking. That's the key. That's the key.
And yeah, thank you for pointing this out. And I think that's what's at the essence of what drives humans in general.
Mm.
Although we seem to be so attached to the goal, it is actually all about the process. I think
Mm.
that's also the reason why I always wanted to, in my former days as a researcher, I always wanted to run an experiment to find out why people would buy these lottery tickets where you don't get the immediate result, but you have to wait for a week and sit in front of TV. Because my hypothesis would be that during this week, they're actually not buying the probability of winning 1 million. They're buying 1 week of dreaming about what they would do with
Yeah.
this million.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this kind of process of enjoyment, this before we actually reach the goal, is totally underestimated.
Yeah. And that's what I think is driving the what they're calling the Great Resignation. You know, I think of it as the Great Reconsideration right now. You know, people are reconsidering their relationship with work, and you know, it's the same thing. It's like, wow, can I have a career and be a father? Can I have, you know, can I do this and this? And I think the old thinking, especially in Asia where I live, you know, traditional thinking here is, you know, you do your job to get paid so that you can do the things that you need to do. And if you have money left over, you can do the things you want to or like to do. And the idea that you could actually make different choices in your life and trade up instead of trade off. It's a new thinking.
Yeah, it's a new thinking, and again, it's a mindset. I recently, it was a few weeks before the festival, and last year by that time, I was totally stressed out, close to burnout. That everyone around me was really seriously worried. And after the festival, my therapist said, "Miriam, you're suffering from postnatal depression." This year was different, and I think one thing that made the difference was I woke up one morning with a revelation, epiphany, and wrote down on a sticky note, I don't need to be busy to be successful. And every day approaching life and business with, okay, so what can I do to be less busy and still successful?
Yes.
Do I really need to do that? Can I maybe outsource it?
Yes.
Can I delegate?
Or can I just not do that? Can I just,
enjoy
we'll do
it?
one less thing altogether? Yeah.
And a total game changer.
Yeah. What a
I
great
started
gift you've
to
given
trust
yourself.
more, to delegate more, to
Yeah.
enjoy more, to dance more.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Two things come up as you're saying. Well, first of all, I just want to say congratulations, because I think that you talk about how changing one thought can change so much. And you just see that as like the prime domino for so many other dominoes. You're going to go tickety, 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 and create so much space for life,
And
you
for
know?
others.
Yeah. Yeah. In open space, like I said, I fell in love with open space technology, and Harrison Owen, the founder, used to always say, can we just do one less thing? It's not about doing one more. It's always about trying to find one less thing to do. Can we make it simpler? And I think I'm terrible at that because I've got this brain that always wants to make things very complicated, but eventually gets pruned back with reality. And then the other thought that I had about that was, I read the book Blue Ocean Strategy back in 2004. And that was when my daughter was just born and my son was 4 years old. and I decided that I quit my company and I was going to start my own business. And I realized that the one thing everybody had told me is spend time with your kids when they're young. And so we decided to homeschool our kids and work from home. And we decided to spend 2 months a year in Seattle, where my parents live, where I just wasn't going to work and so I would just spend a month, you know, my parents' sofa practically. I mean, we do other things, but just, so and just having my kids grow up in, borrowing Seattle for the beautiful summer months. And I would feel guilty about not being busy, about not having income, that, well, for 2 months, I'm not making any money and I'm just spending money. And then there was a moment where that kind of epiphany, that Post-it note moment came where I went to, wow, isn't that great? It was like, I'm getting away with this. We still have money left over at the end of the year. I'm still making more than I'm spending. I have a great relationship with my kids. I feel healthy. Maybe this is okay. Maybe I don't have to work as hard as my colleagues. And so I really went about trying to structure how I do what I do to support me not having to do much.
It sounds like a reboxing moment.
Yeah.
Where the box is you have to be busy, you have to work in order to enjoy life. You have to be busy when you're successful. And what if it was easy?
Yeah.
This was the sticky note before the busyness.
Which
also made a huge impact.
And for me, my sticky note was I want it all. I want family. I want family. I want time with my family. I want to travel. I want to provide for my family. I want to live a comfortable life, but I gave up the option of a luxurious life. Right. And that was my trade up. I'll trade up from chasing a luxurious life to having a comfortable life, but living it. Yeah. And I literally, this sounds really kind of creepy and weird because it's actually true. I giggle to myself about how much I enjoy my life sometimes, like I'm just sitting out there working on stuff. Like, oh my God, yeah, I'm going to get paid for this. So yeah, it's a good space to be in, because then the money's not important and you can give and you become the best at giving what you can do. And then the money comes.
Yeah. And then it's a virtuous circle.
Yeah.
And and then everything follows, right? So if you're happy with the inside, it's less of an effort to have this authenticity, which by definition and by how humans function creates trust from the outside, because they see what's inside. Hence, everything that is integrity becomes easier.
Yeah.
Hence, more trust, more openness, more effect.
And even the shadow becomes easier. I'm looking at you there, and there's your shadow right there. And, right behind you. Yep, there it is. Right. And just the acknowledgement and the understanding that I have shadow and I have bad days. And I got these beautiful lights, but it's like, so when I work with, because a lot of the facilitators are trained in the box, they're not all of them, but there's a certain percentage of them that are maybe 3 to 10 years in the business that are looking for something new. And they're still really dealing with that, what do you call, it's imposter syndrome, right? Imposter, another word for imposter syndrome is just, being a successful facilitator, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're just a pioneer. You're just doing the you're doing the never you're you're saying yes, right? And it's I got a great, I have so many times where I'm dealing with, I'm at the CEO level of one of the world's largest companies. These people manage over 1 million people in China. It's a monstrous company. And I'm the day before the morning of the program, I'm kind of looking in the mirror and I'm like, gosh, am I the right person? And then the guy in the mirror said, who else is going to show up? I mean, it's not like, you've convinced everyone along the process that you are, right? And so it's not like you can call in, say, hey, hey, could you guys, I don't think I'm the right person. Can we get somebody else to go today? That realization that rather than having self-doubt, maybe I should have self-doubter. I should doubt the self that's doubting.
Yeah, that's why I showed you the sticky note with the imposter versus pioneer. That's something that my therapist told me. It's like, of course you have the impression that you have imposter syndrome because you don't know. But don't confuse imposter with pioneer syndrome. A pioneer doesn't know because they haven't gone there yet.
Yeah.
So of course you don't know, but you're gonna figure it out. An imposter doesn't know because they didn't do their homework, and it's nothing that relates to you.
Yeah.
And I think in the professional facilitation where we're constantly in the space where we don't know, because we're dealing with humans, we're dealing with group dynamics. We cannot control, we don't know. So I think to feel like an imposter, who am I to do this, to help them, to be in service, it's very easy to fall into the trap.
Yeah.
Also because sorry.
No, I'll give you your also first.
Also because it's very difficult to put a value label on the outcomes that our work can have. Everything that you explained previously, the different steps of the box process, where these realizations with the culmination at, okay, look at the mirror. It's different now. How can you price what is the value of that? How can we ever put a price tag on that?
And the other side is also true, which is the other part of the challenge is a company will create, at least in my experience, the kind of work I've done, we'll have a 2-day offsite to solve everything. Right. And so we're going to bring everybody in the room, and then we're going to come up with a strategy, and we're going to come up with this, and so then the other part of imposter syndrome is basically me not trusting the group. It's me thinking that I have to take them through this process and I have to deliver these outcomes. But as soon as I flip that from this group desperately wants to, and every single person in the room knows that this is an important time together, and all I have to do is just create the conditions for them to connect and to focus in a way that they hadn't otherwise, and they're gonna do miracles. And even if they don't reach the outcomes that they were looking for, something miraculous is going to happen, and that comes from trusting the group. That comes from having good process, from having good self, but also realizing that this is a group effort, not a Jimbo effort.
Thank you so much for pointing this out. And I had this light bulb moment where somehow my brain was still lagging behind in the pricing kind of thing, because that's something that always comes up in the facilitators groups, community. And I came to realize that if you're working with a group that, as you described it, they really want to get there, they want to get it all and to find all these answers in a 3 days offsite, then they're willing to pay for it. So they're gonna make a huge financial investment, and they direct it to the facilitator, but actually what they're doing is directing it to themselves. So they're willing to make this investment and thereby committing to achieving the goal. And then the role of the facilitator is to hold the space for them to do the work. Whereas a group that does not trust themselves, they're not willing to make the financial investment. They pay little to the facilitator, and hence they're putting all the expectations and responsibility on the lap of the facilitator. And at the end of the day, they say, you failed, and we still don't have a strategy, and we're still fighting with each other, and we're still in our silos.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about pricing, but my attitude is I have a bottom line, and I just never go below it. And then every time a conversation ends up below that bottom line, I feel very grateful, because I never think of it as, opportunity missed. I think of it as I got another day to ride my motorcycle or come up with something new or spend time with clients or whatever, because I have great confidence that in the grand scope of things, I'm going to be okay. And by me having confidence in my self-value, then I do much less work. Isn't that nice? And so, and there's different strategies. And it's one of the things I love about our business is that everyone can have a different strategy, and it doesn't murky the waters. It doesn't, it doesn't ruin things if one person's less expensive. No, it's just a different niche for a different kind of audience, for a different kind of outcome with a different kind of branding. I mean, it's a different strategy. And so every strategy has trade ups and trade downs, right? But I don't think I'm expensive, but I also know that I'm not cheap. And early on in conversations with clients that have just been introduced to me, I have a sheet where I explain the process and how I work. And at the bottom, there's the pricing. And I just put that out to them as a part of this. So this is how I work. This is what we do. This is, and then it's a lot of people just never call back. And I'm like, okay, well, good. Isn't that nice? Because, and then and then that also allows me to donate a lot. So I don't mind donating, right? And I have a scholarship fund that we run, where we take a percentage of our income and put it into scholarships for people to learn how to do the process, who live in countries that don't have, because the pricing's so different, right? In Europe, maybe, this much for a certification is cheap. And now in India or in South America or Latin America or someplace else, maybe that's just like 2 months' salary. And so why not find ways of sharing the income that I make from these, stronger economies into areas with weaker economies? And so I call that a scholarship fund.
May I copy you?
Yes, you may.
Awesome, because I put on the Never Done Before 2022 community that there will be regular scholarships available, because this is something that I committed to, and I was still wrapping my head around how to structure it, organize it from within, and not only relying on external sponsors. And I will do that. Just a percentage of every ticket sold goes into the scholarship.
Yes.
And then the more join, the more join.
Yes. And then what I'm working right now on in the back end of my website, because I'm trying to find a way to make it make sense for somebody who isn't talking to me, is I want to do next year. I want to run a bunch of donated programs, and by donating means I donate my time, and then if you have the means available, you donate to the scholarship. So I use this as kind of it's a way for me to get more experience, get more iteration, and be experimental. And at the same time, invite people who live in parts of the world that can't afford a ticket because it's donation based. And if they don't have money, they come for free. That's okay too, right? And then if people do have money or they get some value, then they donate into the fund. And then that makes it even easier for me to do other cool things for people that want to do cool things.
I love that. And I do see the complexity because as much as I love the idea of donating and giving full scholarships to those who cannot afford, I don't believe in free lunches. There's no such thing as a free lunch. For the reason that I think we don't value what we don't pay for. So it doesn't need to be a big contribution, but I think some sort of a commitment. And I experimented a lot with 100% scholarships and pay as you want, pay as you can, and realized that those who don't pay don't show up.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I agree with you. Yeah, exactly. In 2020, I did a period of time with donations, and I did a set of train the trainers that was donation based. And what I found is this, for me, all these kind of virtual workshops will never be my bread and butter. I would have to run hundreds of them, or I'd have to charge a lot of money just to make up one day of my day job, right? So how much I can make facilitating and how much I can make through my business in a day, I would have to charge a lot for these virtual hour-and-a-half sessions that I want to run to make it competitive. So I don't look at this as my as my business or my income stream. I look at it as my development and brand development and product development, and just, I mean, living out of the purpose, you know, and so what I found is every time someone donated to the program, I felt good. I felt better about that donation than I did about charging. And every time I was able to provide a partial scholarship, and okay, we usually don't do full scholarships, almost never, right? But yeah. Then I felt good. You know, I felt like this is me being who I want to be. And so I've got a very clear distinction between, you know, what I'm my client facing charging and my community building model. These are two very, very different things for me. And so I don't know if it's smart or not, but yeah, that's where I'm moving to now. I'm moving towards donation based, and I'll see how it goes for a year. And that'll be for the low entry stuff, you know, like the hour-and-a-half, 2.5 hour session. And then I'll still have some greater workshops, you know, like 2-day workshops, 3-day workshops, you know, let me mail you a box and we'll go through this together in a group for 2 or 3 days. And that won't be donation based because there's a lot of cost involved. There's a lot of time involved. Yeah. So
fascinating. If you ever want to experiment with your 1.5, 2 hours online framework, I hope that I can get you inside of Never Done Before.
Oh, sure. Oh gosh, it's not about, you guys will get tired of me if I did everything, because I love experimenting and I love, you know, in fact, just before we were here, I was building, I'm building a virtual box in Topia right now that you can actually walk through and that you can stand in front of and that you can, you know, have conversations around that. It's the same visual as the box.
Are you working with VR glasses already?
No. Topia's, they call it 2.5D. Yeah.
Yes. And I want to I'm familiar. I've never been in Topia, but I'm familiar with the
Mm.
concept. It was just when I heard you speaking about walking in the box, how cool would it be with VR glasses to actually see your box from inside and outside
Yeah,
and walk in it?
yeah. Well, you know what? There's a much easier way to do that. It's called this.
Yes.
I don't need the VR, right?
For those who are just
I'm just kidding.
listening in and
Yeah,
don't
I
see
know.
the video, he just put his own box on his head. What makes a workshop fail?
Well, I guess one the previous question to that is, can a workshop fail? Um, I can think of times where I thought I failed. There was one in particular. I was leading a 2.5 day strategic planning process in Malaysia, and I had worked with the organizer, the senior guy, in Taiwan and Sri Lanka, now Malaysia, and so I had a really good relationship with him. He's super demanding, very unrealistic, kind of a jerk, but we got along, I guess. I was the good cop. And he kept telling me, we don't need action plans, we don't need action plans, everybody just needs to talk to everybody. As long as I can get everybody talking to everybody. Came up with this beautiful structure for everyone talking to everyone, 82 people, every single human being talked to everyone. And then about halfway through the second day, he goes, so when are we moving on to action planning? I said, you said we're not going to do action plans. Oh, we got to have action plans. So I told everybody there's no action plans. No, we got to have action plans. We can't leave tomorrow with people not having action plans. So I stood in front of those 82 people as like the third. I've been working with them for about 2 years. I said, okay, so now we're going to be moving towards action planning. And they looked at me like I just put a knife through their heart, because I told them there wasn't going to be action planning and everything was just supposed to be having fun. There's a big party that night, you know. So that night, about half the group is still in the meeting room working on their action plans, while the other half that didn't trust me were out getting drunk because they already had their action plans done. And I'm behind the flip chart and I'm texting to my wife. I'm just crying. I just got tears just coming out. I failed these people. I failed them. And now, I've broken all trust. And, I just felt like total and complete shit. Um, and my wife, she's so great. She goes, well, if it's okay with you, I can do a Reiki session for you. My wife does Reiki. So she did it. So she's like, okay, I'll Reiki for you. And I'm just like, okay, I'll take the Reiki session. And upon reflection, it wasn't a failure. It was just the context. And it was just me making the best decision that I could in the moment. And in the end, the company did great. In the end, the real reason I was hired was to move the company forward. And guess what? The company moved forward. So I don't know. I don't think workshops fail. I think we as facilitators may hold our image of success too tightly. Right. And so, if you're a midwife and the child's born still, is that your fault? Is that a failure? If the mother died, is that a failure? It doesn't feel good, but it might just be nature. It might just be context. It might just be a lot of things. Yeah.
Mm. Thank you for sharing the anecdote and story. It's a good one. How also to what is the responsibility, to whom do we need to be integer then? Is it to ourselves? I promised something, I cannot break the promise, or the client changed
Mm.
the plan and
Mm.
I'm hired by the client, so I follow the change of plan. Am I to blame? Maybe not.
No.
Also, when when is the good moment to actually measure this success? Because I remember there are situations where I'm like also crying in pain, in physical pain for a mental reason or an emotional
Mm,
one. And later I realized, oh, this was what I was supposed to learn. Huge
mm,
success, great pain,
mm,
felt like failure.
mm. Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think my facilitator's box, especially at that time, and maybe it's shifted a little bit now, is my my primary okay, my brain said the word allegiance, so I'm just going to have my mouth say it. Allegiance, responsibility is to the most senior person in the room, because I look at them as the driver of the car, right? Um, and they're the one who has ultimate responsibility for everyone else's stuff. I mean, they're the one who gets fired, or so if I hold too dearly to my image of what a process should or shouldn't be, or what a facilitation should or shouldn't be, and I create an outcome that that senior person cannot use, then have I succeeded? Right? And so, um, one more story, and because this was actually one of the turning moments for me to want to be a facilitator. So I mentioned we hired Larry to do some facilitations in the company I was working in, and so his very first facilitation was in the department that I was the second, number two in command of this department, about 20-25 people. We done our visioning, and we're working on an ICA process that talk about contradictions. It's like a gap. So what's systemically contradicting that vision? And my boss, the boss of that organization, uh, was a cantankerous American, and this was his first time to be in this kind of facilitated meeting. And we were just getting all of this stuff on the wall, all of these things that we thought were holding us back, and there was this kind of sense of hope. And he stood up and he took one of the cards off. Communication, this is bullshit. And he tore up the card. And this was like one of the categories. He says, we just need to get to work here. All this talking isn't helping. And he stormed out. And Larry's like, well, maybe now would be a good time for us to take a break. And it seems like I'm just talking about all the times I'm crying. And so like 3 or 4 of us in this group just made like a group hug in the middle of the room, just crying, because we thought things were going to change. And it just, in that tearing up of that card, it all fell apart. But Larry was able to work with the guy and get us to a kind of closure, but not real closure, and then create another meeting and and work with us and work with the senior person. And in the end, we did come up with closure. So was that meeting a failure? Was that workshop a failure? It might have been if he hadn't continued to facilitate the group as opposed to facilitate the workshop. Ooh, that was deep. Yeah. Yeah. I think we need to be gentle on ourselves as facilitators.
Yes, and still recognize the high art of the craft and the world class
Yeah.
in it. Because exactly the situation that you just described, I think, is a make it or break it moment. It can become a failure, just as you said. It would be a failure if this is the end of it. Okay, you don't want communication. Flip. Fail.
Yeah.
But to create this kind of challenge, to use the energy of this kind of moment to open the door to something new, and to go a step deeper. It's like in a relationship, you have a big fight, and then either you can decide to go apart or to use
Yeah.
this to dig deeper and to deepen the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then some facilitators might turn this moment into an entire failure.
Yeah.
I think it's
And Larry ended up turning it into 5 years of work with Mike.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's important also to recognize that there are bad facilitators around.
Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, there are a lot of trainers that call themselves facilitators. I'm not saying the word trainer as it's bad, because I'm a trainer. I mean, I do trainings, and I train trainers. But I think there's a very different mindset if you're an educator, and if you're a trainer, and if you're a facilitator, and if you're a coach, and overlaps, but very different mindsets.
I would like facilitator to become a concept like leader. So you don't need to be a manager or leadership position or a C in order to be a leader. And I think you don't need to be a facilitator to be a facilitator. Yesterday
Yeah.
I recorded an episode with Thomas Lanthaler about crisis management and how facilitators are actually crisis managers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how beneficial it would be for crisis managers to be facilitators, or at least to master the skills of facilitation, in order to turn their let's have a crisis meeting into let's have a workshop to create opportunities for
Yeah.
innovation.
I know in Asia and in China in particular, the word facilitator has taken off in the last 4 years, 3 years, and facilitator training has taken off, primarily driven by Agile. And so there's the tools and there's the facilitation of the tools. And what everybody found out was, tools don't lead to success. It's the facility. I'm a trained Six Sigma black belt. And so back in 2000, I went through the black belt training, and I found out that about, at least for the program that I went to, 80% of the time was spent on the tools, and especially the process measurement, all of this stuff. And about 20% of our time was spent on the facilitation side. But if you actually look at the tools, 60 to 70% of the tools are facilitation tools. Because where does the data come from? You have to do a CTQ, you got to do a VOC, and all these tools are actually facilitation tools. But there was no emphasis at all on how to facilitate and it was all on how to measure and how to use the statistics and stuff like that. And I think the same things with Agile. There's a lot on the tools side and what the tools can do, but not as much on how do you create that group facilitation.
Because it is, at the end, a very nerdy concept coming from IT. So usually not very interpersonal, empathetic driven. And it reminds me of this kind of lie we're telling to ourselves: I can download this new app to increase my productivity. Let me just buy a book to better. And then we forget that it's not about the app, it's not about the book, it's about the mindset and the training and the living.
Yeah.
You can do agile, you can be agile. There's a huge difference.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, we probably don't have time to talk about this here, but what I'm really fascinated by is what's coming in the future with facilitating online, and how do we create those magical moments? How do you go from me to we virtually? How do it's my experience has been that the the great thing about accessibility through virtual conferencing, like is you and I having this connection here, even though we're not around, and you can get that with the group. But I think there's a kind of hunger for something else, and how do we continue to grow that? Yeah.
I would I would agree that there's hunger. I do not agree to the something else. I think that and I've seen it happening in the scope of Never Done Before, where we're now a community of 108. I think we're 200 now, more than 200 now. And at the festival, something happened. This me to we happened across the globe, that suddenly a group was experiencing something together. And I had the moment where I felt it, that something happened when we have so it's a 24 hours festival, right? So with 4 parallel sessions, I stayed up for 24 hours, and there were maybe a handful of other participants who also went for the marathon. But otherwise, people were dropping in, dropping out. And because there's so much FOMO, we have an Afterglow program that in December we repeat some of the sessions and we add some new. Since I didn't host a session at the festival, I had my Afterglow session on December 1st. And I designed a workshop on a very meta level. So the group was supposed to design the workshop that I am currently hosting. So co-design a workshop for a group to co-design a workshop. And what I felt was that this group they were strangers until 2 weeks ago, total strangers. They were calling in from the Middle East, from Asia, from Canada, from Europe. And they worked on the task as if they were a team. They were laughing. And for me, for me as a facilitator, it was a magical moment, because I thought first, that's ways too meta. That's ways too kind of weird to ask a group to spend time on that, because there's no purpose actually. And they loved it. And they loved the exchange and working on this kind of wicked task together. And all of this happened virtually, online, without never having met each other. And what I want to say with that is, I think we can create these magical human moments with the screen. And there's some people in the community that I've never met physically. I've never smelled them.
Yes.
And still I feel such a deep connection that they feel like family.
Yeah. I agree with everything. I mean, I agree with the sentiment. I agree with the possibility. I agree with the experience. And I guess my question is on the other side of the deal. And what I mean by that is, like, the people who are in a job, who aren't in the, going to this conference around us and these, but are going from meeting to meeting to meeting to hit their, and those people need help.
Yes.
Yeah.
And here, and the community is here. And exactly.
Yeah.
So what if my coach asked me for my 3 years vision, and I said, my 3 years vision is that my life is this festival. My life is a festival, just ongoing. So it's an open house where people come in, people go out, and the fridge is always full and always open, and you just come and enjoy. And work can be like that. Now we're full circle to where we started.
Yes.
What if it was easy? What if at work we can use these spaces like Velo, like Topia, where you can have serendipitous encounters, where you walk into someone's office and start speaking without having a meeting in your calendar, where your meetings are not one person speaks out an email and everyone else is writing their emails that they were supposed to do at another point in time. So I think all of that is possible, and it's maybe our task to
Yes.
help them see that. And I'm happy that there are more and more team leaders joining the community who realize that they can be facilitators,
Yes.
and they
Yeah.
don't have to live this miserable life of working from home,
Yeah. Yeah.
being depressed
Yeah.
and alone.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the question. How can we do that? That's my kind of my the thing that I'm really trying to think about more and more is how do we create that capability, and I love what you're doing, what you and the community is doing. I think it's really fabulous. Um yeah,
Yes.
big fan.
Thank you. I hope you'll be part of our greenhouse.
Mm,
And you ask, how can we do that? And I think the most difficult part is maybe already done is the awareness. Because everyone, before the pandemic, nobody really liked meetings, but the pain wasn't big enough. Now the pain is really big,
yeah.
right? Because now you're confronted with the misery of a meeting while being in your own home. So you have this kind of sharp
Yeah.
contrast between how it is and how it could be, what I could have and what I do have,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, when I speak to normal people who are not facilitated, who are outside the community, outside,
Yeah.
and they and I share how that I spend most of my days on Zoom meetings. Oh, poor you! No, I love it.
Yeah.
They don't understand, but I think so. The awareness is there that it's painful, and so the step of the door is open a little bit to say, oh, you know what?
Hmm.
Do you want to come in? Let me show you my world.
Hmm.
Let me help you experience it just once,
Yeah.
and then see the opportunity and what does it take. And I guess from your experience with your box workshops, I'm sure that you know that it doesn't take that much to make a big difference.
No.
Sometimes,
Usually it's the little things. It's the little things that have a big impact. And wow, that's good. That's yeah. My brain has shifted into contemplation mode here after that sharing, and I think I get a bit jaded because so much of what I see in the virtual, the clients that I have virtually, a lot of them are high tech companies, and I see the left brain winning.
mm,
Like and I see people getting on mural boards or mural boards, and it's like they turn into air traffic controllers. Okay, so I'm going to open up this board here, and if you could just grab some stickies, and we're going to spend 2 minutes and 45 seconds in brainstorming. It's like they literally go into this air traffic controller
yeah,
voice
yeah,
to talk to this part of people, and so there's so much of that happening. But my clients are where I'm getting hired more and more. It's that we are spending all of our time on the tactical and on the short term and on the now. And we don't have a way of thinking strategically or future oriented virtually. So this is great tactically. This is great in terms of let's get things done and who am I today? And yes, we're healthy, great. And so that kind of stuff, like you're talking about the serendipitous conversations, the informal ways of coming together around an idea as opposed to around a breakout room.
mm.
You know, there's these
Wait
things that
1 second.
is, yeah. And and what I see happening, you know, uh, through Vimo and Topia and Spatial Chat, I think in the next year or two, there's going to be 100 platforms because everybody wants to be the platform because the platform makes the money, right? And so there's going to be all these different platforms that are going to be really good at creating different kinds of connections in different kinds of ways. And then how do we as facilitators you know, be comfortable and be platform agnostic, and you know, find ways of taking people. Like for me, I keep telling people I do offsites virtually. I do virtual offsites now. I don't do workshops. I call it a virtual offsite, and that changes the expectation for me too as a designer. Yeah.
Love it. And two things came to my mind when I heard you speaking. One is there will be more and more platform. Everyone wants a platform because that's what drives the money. Where I do see the risk is similar to what you described before and what I related to this to-do list or to agile, that suddenly it's all about the platform and we forget
Yeah.
about what happens on the platform. It is human connection. How do we get to these magical human moments where people see each other? And I think that's,
Yeah.
for me, this is the benefit of online. And I tell my clients, I don't do offline anymore. I don't.
Mm,
I think
mm,
that this one-on-one, face-to-face is much more intimate, stronger, deeper
mm,
in the
mm.
online world. But we need to design for that. We need to allow for that.
Yes.
And it's not, we cannot blame the platform.
No.
It's a facilitator.
No.
It's us, the designers. And the other one is platform agnostic, yes, or platform intentional, I would say.
Mm,
Because
yeah.
I would use Velo not for a general client workshop or offsite, for instance, but for very
Mm,
specific workshops. Like the
mm,
workshop I just mentioned for group to co-design would have been a perfect Velo workshop.
mm.
So how can we actually choose wisely the platform that we're using so it enhances the experience we aim to create? And then the
Yes.
beauty comes in, and then it's nice to have choice.
Yeah. Yeah. My journey with Topia has been an interesting one. I fell in love a little bit like open space. Every once in a while I fall in love with things. Um, and it's like I keep telling myself that all the world building skills that I'm figuring out on Topia are going to transfer over to other world building oriented platforms. It's the same kind of things. You know, you have private zones, you broadcast, you know, and so this is my like tutorial level
Mm.
in my virtual facilitation life. And you know, I purposely didn't choose Miro or Mural because all of my colleagues are doing that, and it's great for that. And I think I would rather hire them to work with me, and I'll learn something nobody else. I want to do what's never been done, right? I want to do the thing that nobody else is doing, so that you know I can be different. I can be unique. I can have a special value offer. For me, I think that's just the way I'm wired. Um, and so it's exciting to think like I was even talking about just recently. I was guessing I probably got about another 6 months, maybe 8, for what I have planned to do in Topia, and then I'm going to kind of go through that cycle. And I go, God, I wonder what I'm going to learn next. You know, it's kind of exciting. Um, One of my so I'm 56 or 7, I can't remember. I'm 50 something, and one of my key words for myself is relevance.
Mm.
Because I have some older facilitators and some friends of mine, and some are relevant and some aren't. And there's a very distinct line as for the aging facilitator. And part of it has to do with learning new ways of doing things. Part of it has to do with connecting with not just senior people, because senior people retire, and then all of a sudden you're left with no connections left. I've got 2 or 3 friends that are very much in that space where all of their connections have retired, but a lot of it is just experimentation and just getting out there and doing what I've never done before. Yeah. So it's exciting. I think that's, to me, that's the exciting part of this business. We're in a business has such a low barrier to entry. Like anyone can call themselves a facilitator. There's no international standard. You get a business license. You don't even need a business license, really. So how do you gain the competency and the relevancy to be able to do stuff that's interesting? That's the puzzle. That's one of the bigger puzzles that my brain's working. How can I stay so relevant that I'll be in the game when I'm 70? Yeah. I think I'm gonna do it. I think I got a shot at it.
I can sense that.
Mm.
Wow. Before closing,
Mm-hmm.
it feels like a closing moment. After almost 2 hours, 1.5 hours of conversation,
Mm.
what would you invite the audience to walk away with?
I'm getting back to my purpose. I came up with a very clear image of my purpose about 2 years ago, and I think in 2021 I kind of got a little bit lost in the details and in trying to figure out the logistics of life. But my purpose is to improve the way the world thinks, one box at a time. And the first box always has to be mine, right? And so if I guess my invitation would be just to continue to do what we've all been doing all of our lives, which is make a shift in thought and see what comes out of that. Get conscious about what's serving you and what's not serving you. Like one of my friends, Valerie, always says, it's not a forever decision. And in our process, we use sticky notes, and so like this represents how I make decisions. Well, I can always take the sticky note off, and I can put it back later if I decide I want to do that. So yeah, look at your thinking as a prototype. Yeah, and continue to experiment with it, and that would be my. I don't know if that's the question, but that's the answer, right? My invitation would be just to continue to challenge your own thinking, and and I honestly do believe this, and your story is a great example of that new thought. You can get more of what you really want in life with less pressure, with less stress, and I think that's the grand game of life: is how do I get more of what I really want, what's really important to me, while giving myself less stress and pressure and uncertainty and all those negative motivators. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a
forward to
total non-surprise that it's been a wonderful time. You're very good at this.
Thank you.
Very good at being you, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Looking forward to what will emerge.
Yeah.
Let's find some facilitation crops.
Yeah. And when I get these sessions up for 2022, I'll invite you to come along and play.
I'd love to play.
Yeah, I know.